Hi, and welcome to another episode of Kasper On BI. Today, I'm excited to make another episode with a guest. The guest today is Wolfgang Strasser. And Wolfgang is a data platform MVP from Austria. We've known him for many years. I've known him for many years. He's done a lot of work on analysis services and many other things, but these days he's a bit more focused on data governance, Purview. I don't know as much about it as I want to, so I've invited him and I'm going to ask him questions around what is data governance these days. What is Purview? What can we do with it? How can we give it to our Power BI users? What are the benefits for them? And how is it different than whatever we have inside of Power BI as data lineage and things like this? So I'm really looking forward to learning from him a lot today. So with that, let's just go listen to Wolfgang and let's go to the episode. So, hi, Wolfgang. I'm honored to have you here. Many people already know you from around the MVP circuit, the speakers, and all of these things. But still, I would love you to share a little bit what you do, about your company, where you live, and so on.
Yeah. Hi, Kasper, and thanks for having me. And greetings to everyone from Austria. I'm Wolfgang. I live and work in Austria. So I'm based in Upper Austria. I'm living right next to the Danube, so on the countryside. But what I do is I'm working as a data consultant. So my day-to-day job is focused around data, from collecting data, preparing data, modeling data, up to the reporting in Power BI. So it's like everything around data. And that it's, that's my job. And almost my second job, I would call it, is somehow speaking and teaching and workshops. And well, before that thing, traveling around the world. And
that's how we met. I don't know exactly where we've met for the first time, but I do remember going to Austria once. So that was pretty good.
Yeah, it's some years ago. I can't remember where we first met, actually.
Yeah, no. So were you always into data, like straight out of school, or you did other side gigs before?
There was a side gig. I started software engineering. So actually, I started my career as a software engineer. And I was into C#, .NET for several years. And then somehow, SharePoint kicked in. And that was like a decision to move out of the software engineering. So I moved into the data field.
So you were already fed up with SharePoint?
Yes, it's a thing I use now, but I don't want to really work with it in the technical side. Let's call it that way. Yeah.
And the market for SharePoint came, and you thought, oh no.
Oh yeah. It was like, oh my God, welcome again. And the data thing actually started really early because I was working as a software engineer in a research project in the bioinformatics field, where we actually built a data integration database for protein interactions. And I was more on the software development side to build the web page and the search engine. But the data somehow got more and more interesting. And I started with a SQL Server at that time, so it was SQL Server 2000, and much more came, and integration services, SQL Server new releases, analysis services, reporting services, and the last years, Power BI. So
makes sense. Yeah, cool. Anything else? Any interesting hobbies that you do have? I know you're a runner.
Yes, I started running like 3 years ago, and I'm a member of an orchestra, local orchestra. So I play the oboe for a long time now. I think it's 26 years that I'm a member of the orchestra, and I'm part of the leadership team, and well, actually quite involved when we are allowed to play, which isn't the thing as of this week now again. So
same here. It sucks. Yeah. All right. So thank you. So let's talk about data governance. Like I know I know you from the data world and the analysis services and all these things, but lately you've been talking more about Purview and things like this and data governance. So I wanted to talk about this because I actually don't know as much as I should about it. So I'm hoping to learn too. But let's start with the beginning because, I mean, I think you and I kind of started BI world in about the same time. All this time, we've been talking about data governance.
Yeah.
What does it mean?
Well,
or maybe I should ask, what does it mean to you?
Yeah. I was preparing for today's session, and I was like, I don't have a real straight definition of data governance, because data governance can be not anything, but for me, there are two different very important pillars. It's the process and the organization that has to be part of the data governance. And on the other side, it's the technical, the tools that can help you to get better into data governance. But what it actually is, I often describe it as to better know your data, to better know the people that are involved dealing with your data, to know where's the data, where is what kind of data, and how those data islands, or whatever you call it, are connected. So what is the data flow in between? And it's like there are scientific definitions, whatever, but for me, it's like to better understand your data for the people, processes, and technologies involved. So it's really a hard topic. And I was thinking when I first somehow met data governance, and I actually found out, and I wasn't aware that it's data governance. It was during the time when I was working in the research project, where we worked together with medical people, and they published scientific papers. And we had to prove, where does the data come from? Where are those transformations, or how is the data combined? And that was the first somehow meeting and getting together with data governance, although I didn't knew at that time that it's called data governance, because we had to write down, where does the data come from? It was taken on November 17th, whatever. And all that stuff, and the description of the data transformation process and everything like that. So it's not only the documentation, because if you put it that way, many of us could say, okay, that looks like it costs money and my data is documented. But I think data governance is important to your organization to get better, because the more you know about your data, the more you can use your data. And
so that kind of sounds more like data discovery. In my mind, data governance is something that IT security teams talk about because they want to make sure that no data is leaving the organization, or they know who's using what, so nothing leaks. Or that's usually how I encounter it. But yours sounds better, if you ask me. But
yeah, it's like a result, or the results out of customer discussions, because there are many different definitions or thoughts about data governance when you start a discussion with a new customer. Some are completely focused on the technical side. So, well, we need a tool to get a data catalog, whatever. We need a tool to audit the security, whatever. And others say, okay, we want to classify data. We want to know who is working with the data. And as I said, there is no real, for me, no real one sentence definition of data governance. And it's really important to not forget the organizational approach, the processes, the people that are involved. And that is the thing which, in my experience during our workshops, is the hardest to convince the customers to think about what is.
Okay. But so I'm trying to see what this would actually mean, and how would how does it become tangible?
Good question.
Like as a customer, so you have workshops with the customers, and you're talking about these things. what are they getting out of it?
Yeah. Well, what we tried to do in the beginning is like getting to know at which level the customer is already working with data governance, although they don't know they are working with data governance. So like getting some sort of overview. Are there roles that are maybe defined, or roles that are just there, or people that are just there and do the work, like data quality, like auditing, like getting through the logs or whatever.
Yeah.
And that is the start. And what we try to get out of our workshops is the idea for the customer how to start, where to start, in combination to see where are they, what is their level. And many of those customers, some of them really have a rule set defined, but they don't know that it's actually related to data governance. It's more like we are looking at data quality in order to get better quotes out to the customer. So it's more like completely different stories at different customers, what they are doing. And the main idea behind those workshops is to bring the idea of data governance and to bring the success factors if they apply certain rules, if they define we need an overview about the policies, we need an overview about the roles that are involved, whatever. And maybe it's not the kind of obvious that it helps within the next 1-2 months, but it's more the vision to start that process.
Makes sense. So again, let's take it one. So what are the different like areas to look at? Like, because I can remember in the past, like you had master data, data quality, like data, like harvesting, it's crawling, metadata crawling, and things like this. And then you're talking about the actual like policies and things like this, which you would store in some sort of master data store, I assume.
Yeah, there are different areas, and it's like the separation of the processes and the tool thing. So one of those data discovery, it's the data catalog. So it's a tool which allows you to catalog your data environment, your data estate. What are the systems that are there? What are the objects that are in there, in the database, the tables, data lake, Power BI data sets, reports, and so on. And within the data catalog, it's important to know what kind of data is stored. If you take SAP, those table names are not that kind of user-friendly. Yeah. The KNA1, whatever, it's the customers table. So you need to know what actually translates from the technical name to a more meaningful name. And especially on the column side, what is stored in the column for the column name for email address, whatever. And that is the thing where you need to go from the technical inventory, I often call it the technical structure, to a more generic one, and add maybe some classification. So some sort of tags on your data. That's the part where, that's the part where email addresses are stored. That's a person name. That's a contact. That's a driver's license, whatever. So that is really important to move out of the technical description into a more business friendly. And then there's the part of the business glossary, because the main difference between and on the other side, we've got the business description. That is customer data, and that is supplier data, whatever. And that is a completely different approach for people from the departments. They are talking about customer data. They don't mind if it's stored in table A or B. And for the connection between the different data islands or the tables, whatever, it's the data lineage. That's another very, very, very important thing, and one of my technical favorites, to get to know where does the data come from and where does it go to.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
I don't know if it was in your BI projects. There's often the question, where does that number come from?
Of course, yeah, and it was never able to even actually get it. So maybe that ties into the nice. So what tools do we have available, like today in the Microsoft world, but maybe outside of the world?
Yeah.
That we can use for these things.
Yeah. So when I started years ago, it was somehow difficult to find, for even integration services, to find the data lineage. There were some open source tools which worked. And since last year, we've got a new service, the Azure Purview service in Azure, which allows us, although it's called the Unified Data Governance Service, I've read the documentation, but it's more like I would call it the start with the data catalog, the classification and the data lineage. So what it does is it provides you the technical inventory plus the classification approach, the business glossary approach, and data lineage. So that is the Microsoft answer for that thing. And although it's running in the Azure cloud, you can catalog your on-premises data like SQL Server, Oracle, whatever, and also services in other clouds. So Amazon Cloud is supported and so on. So it's the team calls it the multi-cloud approach. So it's not related to Microsoft services only. And there are other tools out there like the Colibra data catalog and especially also data governance software that really focusing on the broader approach, not only the data catalog. So if you search for data catalog, there is a huge list of tools, and there is often a huge amount of dollars or euros or whatever you have to put into the play. So yeah, our customers are like small, medium companies in Austria. And that was one of those blockers in the past because they didn't want to spend many dollars for data governance, just to see what data they have.
Yeah.
And especially with the announcement of Purview, we really focused on the Purview side because it lowered the entry bar on the financial side. And that really makes it better to really start even with smaller companies to get into the data cataloging and the data governance thing.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So like maybe we should stay on the Microsoft side for a bit because so we know there's Purview. We used to have MDS, we used to have DQS.
Yeah.
I think that's also part of the game, but it's awfully quiet on that side in the Azure environment. I know people and customers who are still using it. Is that part that is missing?
Yes, definitely. So it's I mentioned the data discovery, data lineage, data classification, but it's also the data quality, master data management, the policies, so permissions and so on. Those are the things that are, maybe call it the next levels or the next rings. So Purview is as of today very, very hard focused on the data catalog. Yeah. But with the data catalog, we need better data in the data assets. So it's data quality. We need master data definitions. It's master data as a next step. We need somehow a central definition of policies. It's the policies approach. So it's very important, but unfortunately it's very quiet on the vendor side as of today. So
yes. Well, at least let's get Purview out. We worked on that for quite some time too. So now finally we're getting into right territory, and a lot of people are starting to use it. So maybe let's talk Purview.
Yeah.
So where are we right now in Purview land? Preview, GA.
We are at the GA state. I think it was at the end of September. So the preview.
Awesome.
started December last year, I think 10 months like the preview. And now it's GA for, I think, almost everything that you can see in the Purview Studio. So the Purview Studio is the web interface. And there is only one thing, I think it's called the insights, the Purview insights, the reporting on your data catalog, which is not GA now. Yeah.
But I assume, it's like new features get added regularly.
It's definitely regularly. And Past Summit was just a few days ago, and some new stuff was announced, like the policies approach. So the next level is getting into Purview, like defining the policies, like read access to a certain database within Purview, and there's a publish button, and you publish that permissions to the database and also into the direction of a data lake. So it's really fast and fast moving as Power BI. So it's not like we get that version and we have to wait for 2, 3, 6 months, whatever. It's like almost every month there is a new thing that is added to the play.
Awesome. So let's say I'm a customer. I want to start with this on this journey, probably then with Purview. So maybe take one step back. So what do you get with Purview? Like you talked about these data governance scenarios in the past, and we talk about Purview and data governance, but I understand it's not the whole story. So what do you get with Purview?
Yeah, with Purview. Well, if you want to start, what you need is a Purview account. And Purview is an Azure service, so we need to commission a Purview account. And the Purview account, the main pillar is the data map. So that is the central data store. That's the engine that powers like Purview. And that data map needs to be filled. So we have to configure sources to Azure SQL, to Power BI, to a data lake, whatever. And that sources are scanned. And the scan definition contains what area of the database I would like to scan, like only those schemas, that part of the data lake in Power BI. I think today we only can scan the full tenant, but that's the context what we need to define. And then we need to define what classifications should be applied during the initial import. And classifications, it's a name. What you need to have for a classification, it's a rule. So basically a data rule. And you can define your own rule. And that is, in the simplest way, a regular expression. So you define a regular expression, and it's good that
So what's an example of a classification? Is like this is a city, or this is a person, or this is.
Well, there are system classifications like 200 that Purview is delivered with, like a person name, an email address, a phone number, or an Austria's driver's license number, or an Austrian passport number. Yeah. And there are 200 whatever classifications in there.
All right.
And if you want to add your, in my demos, I usually show my customer numbers because they start with KU, Kunde, customer, and 4 digits. So I define a regular expression. And I define the classification and the classification rule. And those are processed during the initial import. And you can select all system classifications you want to look for, or only the Austrian ones, only person name and whatever. So that is the thing you get the data into. So we need the account, and we need to configure sources and scans. And what is still missing after that process, it's the bridges, it's the data lineage, because it's only a database, it's only a data lake, it's the Power BI data set somewhere. So we need to get those connections. And for those, it's a little bit the way around. So you start your Synapse environment or your data factory, and you configure a Purview account, and the lineage information, the execution information is pushed into Purview. So it's not pulled from the system by Purview, it's the other way around. And then there's the process where actually the magic happens, that the network is built. So the table in database A is connected to table in database B through a copy activity in Data Factory.
So like I can imagine, so you configure some sort of a crawler then, but you said push. So is it?
Yeah. The crawler, it's the scan and the source definition for SQL Server, for example. So Purview triggers a scan, and the data is, well, all the tables are read, the schema is analyzed. And for the lineage part, every execution of a pipeline pushes the lineage information into Purview.
Yeah.
We get that connection in there.
So you build this network of like, and what are some of the things that are supported? What are some of the important things that you can scan and look into and map?
I think there are around 20 systems that are supported natively by Purview, like starting with Azure SQL managed instance, Synapse dedicated pools, the data lake storage, on-premises sources, SQL Server, Oracle, Teradata, SAP is supported.
Yeah.
And
in Austria, Germany, world.
Yes. Yeah. It's one of the main sources for our data warehousing projects. Yeah. And I think there are roughly 20 sources. And those sources...
And you're forgetting the most important one.
Power BI. I think I mentioned Power BI. And if I haven't, Power BI is a supported source. Sorry. Yeah. And that one even got better. We can talk about that later.
We will, yes.
Yeah. And if there is a thing that is not supported, especially in the beginning when Purview went into preview, the support for SQL Server was like, we get the tables, we get the views, but we get no connection like stored procedures and everything like that. And there is one open API that is supported by Purview. It's called the Apache Atlas API, which is basically the open source standard for data governance. And Purview understands that API. So we, as a developer, can push our custom metadata into the Purview data map or query the data. So if we have a third-party application where we want to query the data catalog data, well, the Azure, not the Azure, it's the Atlas API that allows us to work with it. And we've done it in the beginning. So we've pushed procedure information and the missing link between the Power BI dataset and the rest of the data lineage.
All right, so now I've set this up. Probably done by someone in IT. You've set up the whole map. Now I'm a business user. Can I use it? Can I do what? And what can I do?
Yeah, as a business user, well, I would say, hey, we need your help to get a better understanding of the data. So business glossary, it's your part. We need to define the glossary terms, and it's work involved because the glossary terms cannot be applied automatically. So we have to go to a customer table and apply the business term customing, for example. But for the more like business users that only want to consume the data catalog, it's the Purview Studio. And the Purview Studio, it's like the thing for the administrators, for the data curators, but also for the data readers. And the main thing when you start the Purview Studio, it's a search box in the middle. And that is the main entry point because data catalog, I want to search for my pieces of data. And there are roles involved. So we can apply different roles and different permissions. Like data readers are only able to read certain pieces of your data map. And I think I haven't mentioned that concept, there's a concept called collections. So we can group our sources into collections, which is just a logical grouping, and we can add permissions to that collections. And if you have a larger company, and maybe you've got a company in Austria, one in Germany, and the other one in the US, you can set permissions at the collection level so that only people from Austria can work with the Austrian data. And the headquarter, well, is allowed to have a look at everything. So the data readers are, I think, the main access for the business users. And what they can do is, well, they can initially start a search within the data catalog, search for customer. And what Purview returns is everything that somewhere contains the search key like customer. That is sometimes in user instances like a huge list. And what we now can do is we can filter the results, like the classifications that were applied, the business glossary terms, or even we know we want to look for a system where Kasper is the technical expert, because that can also be applied to databases, tables, or whatever. So we can refine the data information.
Like that's part of the glossary or metadata that you define?
Yeah, it's part of the information piece in Purview. It's called data asset. So a data asset is a table or a file in the data lake or a Power BI data set. And for every piece, you can apply owners or experts. And or experts. And you can even apply the technical expert or the content expert or whatever. And you can apply those people, these responsible people, at every level of the hierarchy, at a specific table, at a schema, at a database, or at a database server. So it's really, really granular where you put the information.
And so what would be, the main use case that again comes to my mind is because I'm having these conversations. Okay, where did we store credit cards? Where did we store PII and data? Where is that used and where does it come from? Like, where did we even get this stuff?
Yeah.
But again, I'm probably mostly hearing these questions and stories from the IT teams that I work with. But what are some of the other scenarios?
Well, actually, the example you mentioned, it's one of the main reasons. It's GDPR. We need to know where,
of course,
is our PII data. And that is a good thing to start with the data catalog, really to search for email address, and you get all those assets where email addresses are. And with the data lineage, well, we see if the field itself, the column itself, it was at some part of the data flow named email address, but then it was, well, renamed to address or contact. And with the data classification, we have the classification applied. And we can have a look at even for most or some of the cases, even at column level, what was the lineage. And for the other use cases, it's like a similar approach where people want to know where is product data stored. Where do we have product data, or like customer data in general? Like we have got a CRM, ERP, we've got a web shop. And where's customer data? And are there any processes that are exchanging data in the background? Maybe we don't know. So it really depends. But with the data catalog, it's more like get to know the data and where is our data. And one of the main reasons it's GDPR. Yeah.
Yeah, I can imagine. Like, I cannot even imagine like a huge company how complicated of a setup it will be. Like even the smaller companies, they already have a CRM application here, and they have some Excel spreadsheet sitting over there, and some SQL Server database sitting over here. That already gets complicated. But the big multinational organization,
oh my God, yeah,
it must be really, really complicated to manage. But
there's,
I feel like, and maybe I'm wrong, there are no shortcuts to this. You have to like go
Yeah.
through everything that you have, because there is just a lot.
Yeah. And for some pieces of the data transformation story, you know it. If you have your ERP system and you've got a data warehouse somewhere, you know, okay, we get the data from the ERP. But what about the CRM and the ERP relationship? Only those people that maybe implemented those interfaces know it. So we have to do some sort of scanning and classification. And there is one recommendation for the viewers and the attendees. The past summit session about Purview of Raghu, well, he explains somehow the story of Purview. And it's actually Microsoft that needed something before the GDPR story. And
yeah, I can imagine.
well, if you want to do it manually in a small company, maybe, yeah. But in a larger company or even a huge company like Microsoft,
yeah,
you need a tool that helps.
Awesome. So I'll definitely put that down in the link, and actually watch it myself too. I haven't watched that one. I did watch some
That
sessions
one
past, but yeah,
is really nice. So it's the story, the current state, and the look into the future. So what is coming, especially with the policies and Lineage improvements. So nice
awesome.
one.
So let's go back and talk about Power BI, because that's really what we all want to hear
Yeah.
about. So as a Power BI user, what can I do and what can I gain?
Yeah, with Power BI, well, we can configure Power BI as a source for Purview, if I start that way around. And what we get in the Purview data catalog are data assets of type Power BI dataset, Power BI report, and dashboards. Well, and we've got the relationship. Dataset or a report is related to that dataset and so on. And that one is like the data lineage we also can see in the Power BI lineage view. So it's not that kind of new stuff. But what really makes it powerful and what is announced, and it's not there in my tenant, but there was a short demo at the Ignite where the data set in Power BI is not the end of your lineage. So it's not dashboard, report, data set. It's the connection to the overall data lineage. So maybe you've got 7 steps that fill the table that is the source for the Power BI data set. And that is really powerful, because with that we can answer those questions.
You're talking from the Power BI side. So today you have the lineage view in Power BI, and that stops at the data set.
Yeah.
But you said that the demo was showing it because that information is available in Purview. It kind of connects to it and then allows you to dive in deeper.
Yeah. So what it actually does, as of today in Purview, we've got the data set and we've got the information that data comes from a specific database. But that will be connected. So it will not only be the database, it will be the table. Yeah. And the table, well, it's the destination for maybe some processes that run beforehand.
That's pretty awesome.
It is.
It's not there yet, but you've seen the demo in Ignite, so they talked about it, so it will be there.
Yes,
hopefully soon.
And what really made it possible, it's the enhanced metadata scanning in Power BI. So that really helps.
And that's also, that API is available too, right?
Yes. Yeah. So what you can do, and some of the MVP colleagues already have done, for the Power BI governance, well, you need to know what reports, what data sets are there, what are the users, and so on. And I think Used or Rui, which actually isn't MVP anymore. No. Yeah. And he made the Power BI Monitor tool, which extracts the metadata, all those data sets, reports, users, and the audit log, and combines it together. So you have the inventory of your Power BI environment, which is very important.
Yeah, I actually saw it. Rui, of course, my new colleague. Yeah, he has an amazing GitHub repo. I also put it in the link. I mean, you can just run it. Like, you don't even have to anything. Just some PowerShell scripts. You run it. You open the Power BI desktop file that he added to it, and then refresh it, and there you have it.
Yeah. The most time you need in our custom instances is the app definition in the Azure Active Directory and the security requirements.
Yes.
But the other way, it's PowerShell extracts the data and refresh in the Power BI report.
Yeah.
Very, very handy.
Makes sense. So, okay. So we've kind of tied it all together, right? So you have Purview that scans your whole Azure estate. Then you have Power BI, which we care a lot about, and our users we care a lot about. They will be able to see, okay, this Power BI report, it actually came all the way from this SAP system on-prem, and this is the journey that it had along the way. So that's really cool. So what is it, and maybe not just Power BI, but also Purview, what is it in the roadmap that you really are excited about, that you can talk about, obviously, under non-NDA?
Yeah. Rolling eyes and thinking about, it's the overall story to know more about the data. And it's what I really like. It's the idea of having a single point where you can search the data estate, but now with the announced policies, you can even define the security requirements and everything on one place and just publish it to the database. So it, in my
you mean
point
database?
Of view,
you mean the Purview database?
No, it's like you define a reader role in a SQL Server database or in an Azure SQL database within the Purview user in the Purview Studio. And those permissions and policies are applied to the database. So that is really powerful because you don't have to switch tools. And on the other side, you've got documented who is allowed to read the data, who is allowed to work with the data. So you don't have to switch tools. You don't have to fetch the security definition from SQL Server itself. If it's, extended in the future, you have one place where all those policies are defined. So that is really powerful. And what I really...
So what type of policies are there? Like you talk about security rules, like you can read or you can write or things like this.
Yeah.
What other policies?
I haven't seen other ones, or I can't talk about other ones.
Okay, makes sense.
Yeah. So what is actually in the past summit session, and there's another one in the overall Azure SQL security session. It's like you define read or write access to a schema, to a table, to whatever, and that those is the first step of the policies definition.
All right, pretty cool. So that's that's pretty exciting. Anything? I mean, you already talked a little bit about the integration with Power BI that they've showed at Ignite, where you'll be able to go into the lineage. That's really like the holy grail, if you will.
It's like the everything around Lineage. So every time I see an enhancement to the Lineage thing, it makes my life easier, especially in those BI projects. Well, we don't have to document it somewhere. It's in Purview. And what is coming? It's a better Lineage support for SQL within the database. I talked about the SQL stored procedures, and they will be analyzed. So that is really nice because in
a lot of ETL happens in there.
Yes, it's the data factory that gets the data from somewhere to the staging, but then there's the data preparation in the database, and that looks very nice. I'm gonna have a huge launch party whenever that launches. So that is really a thing I really, really look forward.
Awesome. So are there any other third-party tools that really play well with this too? Because I mean, there are some gaps today, right? You've talked about it before, MDS, DQS, although I do actually know customers who are still using it because you can.
Yes, because it still runs somewhere, yeah. What are there? There are some tools that have an integration with Purview using the Atlas API, like Prophecy. They announced a partnership, the MDM part. So I think that is one of those extension points, like Power BI with the custom visuals, external tools. And in Purview, you've got the Apache Atlas API. And I haven't looked deeper into that field, but it's on my list to have a look at those maybe supported scanners for the Apache Atlas. If there is a tool that scans, I don't know, a cryptic Excel file. Excel is not a good example, or some sort of database system, and gets the metadata and puts it into Apache Atlas, which actually could be Purview. So that is a thing where I really see a huge opportunity for, like, every company to have a look at the Atlas API.
That's pretty cool.
And what I look forward, and I hope to find some time, those reports, like using Power BI as a consumer and query the data and maybe have some sort of other visualization or whatever based on the data map information.
Yeah, it's long, but I mean, I can imagine it would work well for with small amounts of data. But if you really start to have a huge tree, then
you have to filter.
Yeah, it's gonna be interesting. So okay, so we've talked a little bit about what Purview has and I mean the rest of the data stack. I think I mean it covers most of the Azure data stack and outside. Is there anything that we're missing yet, or?
Maybe again from the Lineage part. So I mentioned Data Factory and Synapse pipelines and integration services. It's actually there, or I would call it a but. Yeah, it's missing some things. It's like the simple copy activity, and in 120% of our projects, we are using generic pipelines, like having a loop, metadata, and so on. Yeah. And that one is still missing. So those pipelines are not that kind of put well into the lineage tree in Power BI, in Purview, sorry. So that is a thing where I hope that it will get better. And it's the same for integration services. It's like a simple data flow task without the lookup, then it works. If there's a lookup or whatever,
not so good. All right. So pretty cool. But I mean, they're just GA, so they're adding new features all the time. So that's really good. So let's say I'm a new company. Okay. And I just use Power BI. I don't have anything and I'm new to data governance. What advice would you give?
What advice? I think first of all, I would just talk about data governance. It's not a tool only. It's like more a mindset. You have to think about that. And data governance doesn't need to be the full stack. So you should focus on the things that are the most important things for your company. Maybe you know your databases because you are small. You started a year ago. You know your systems. You know the interfaces between. Then it's maybe more interesting to go into the data classification, the data quality, for example. And so what I would really suggest is to have a look at what data governance can contain and what are the pain points you are struggling with. Like it's data quality. It's maybe you don't know the data lineage. Maybe you need to provide the data transformations, maybe legal requirements, whatever. So really focus on the things what are needed and what you think is the most of pain for you. And then I would focus on that specific area. I wouldn't start the overall, we start with data governance now project. So I would really focus on the different pillars and get some sort of priority.
Okay, so maybe one thing to maybe then to add to that, where do I go to learn?
Data governance?
Data governance, Purview, whatever. Do you have some recommendations? Of course, you have written a lot about it, and I'll definitely put all your blogs about this in descriptions too and sessions. But yeah, where do I learn more about it?
Where do I learn? Well, for the Purview side, well, it's quite easy. There's a lot of documentation. There are videos, there are blogs out there. For the data governance, there are some LinkedIn groups which I really like, and I can send you the links that you can put
Yes,
it
please
into
do.
the session notes. And there are books, and I have to talk together with my colleague if he also has some recommendations, and we can add some recommendations to get into the data governance field. So it's like, as I said, you can have the research scientific focused approach, and it's good to know what is the scientific definition and whatever. But on the other side, for the customer projects, it's like you just have to start with something. That is the thing what we learned. If we started some of our workshops like that is the definition, we have to follow that rules and so on. And many customers said, I'm not sure if I want that. And if we switched a little bit the direction into what is really important, what is your major pain point, what do we need to solve that is related to data governance, it works well. So
Maybe again, going back to that question that I get a lot. Okay, so I have no clue what's going on in my Power BI environment. We are mostly self-service. I don't know what my users are doing. Can I use Purview to get an idea on this? Can I find out if they're using PII information, credit card information, customers?
Yes, at a specific part, not the overall story. For the Power BI story, I would recommend Purview and, for example, the PBI monitor, Ruiz PBI monitor, because what is missing in the Purview is the actual usage and so on. So what Purview does, it scans. There are 1,000 data sets and 2,000 reports, but we get no usage. And the Power BI monitor, well, it extracts the usage data too. So we get some sort of feeling. Are those reports used? What are the most used data sets and so on? So I would use it in a combination. And as I speak, I've got the idea of using the Apache Atlas API and put some of that information maybe as an extended property or property to the Purview asset. So yeah, ideas keep coming.
Yeah, exactly. Very cool. So, okay. So maybe the last question. So we've talked about Purview, we've talked about data governance, how to get started. Let's quickly switch to Power BI because I know you're also a big Power BI fan and using it a lot. What is the most exciting Power BI? I love to ask this question. What is the most exciting feature of Power BI in the last year for you?
It's good that we moved the recording because actually with the November release, there was a new connector, the Azure Synapse Analytics connector, the workspace connector. And as I work with Synapse in many of my projects, that connector allows me to connect in one go to the workspace. And I can connect to Spark databases, serverless databases, dedicated pools with just one connect. So it's not, I have to select the Spark connector, I have to select the SQL connector, whatever. It's just I connect to the workspace. I can list and select those databases I'm allowed to access. And that is really, really powerful. And that is, it's fresh, it's hot and new, but I really like that one.
What, was it yesterday or something that it's released?
Yeah. Yes.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
But still, I mean, that's really good. All right, cool. Well, I think, I mean, we're at the end. I have learned a lot about Purview. I think I need to learn a bit more too, but I'm going to definitely look at those sessions that you provided too. Yeah, I really want to thank you for your time. It was awesome. It was good to see you too. Hopefully
Yes.
soon we'll be able to see each other in person again too. But yeah, so thank you very much for your time.
Thanks for having me, and for all those attendees, just try it and catalog your data, as I like to write in my blog posts.
Awesome. All right. Thank you very much. Bye.
Bye.
And that concludes another episode of Kasper On BI. I learned a lot from talking to Wolfgang about Purview. I didn't know much about it either. I took this opportunity to learn myself. And I think I learned a lot. I'll put all the links in the descriptions so you can learn more about it if you want. And if you like this, hit the like button. Hit the subscribe button because more is to come. We're going to learn more about Power BI. We're going to learn more about a lot of different things. And with that, I want to thank you for your time and see you next time.